very good. So you'll have to help me out, guys. So, so my name is Belinda, and I will be taking you through this journey of critical skills, thinking, mapping. This, people often, everyone thinks they think critically, as I like to say, but it's something that everyone, including myself, has to consistently learn and relearn, and you find out, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or this is not the right way, and I keep doing it over and over again. I'm just going to share my screen now. Can everybody see it? Because now I can't see your beautiful faces. So you'd have to unmute and say yes or no.
I can
Yes,
see
we can
it.
see it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So this is a bit about my journey. So first of all, the title of this class is Zoning into the Box, because a lot of you will have to do this as you're trying to figure out your research topic. Even those with research topics or research questions and a fairly developed methodology, you also have to kind of zone in a bit deeper often, especially at this stage, to kind of hit the nail on the head on the structure of what you want to achieve through, your academic career, your professional career. So that's why it's called Zoning into the Box. So this is a bit about my journey. So I studied at the University of Cape Town, as I mentioned before. I did my BA there, I did my LLB there, and I did my LLM there. I'm one of those people who I find a place I like and I stay. It's a good and a bad thing. I'm adventurous to a point. And really the aim and intent of my journey has always been this idea, this far-fetched idealistic thing that, your parents, your grandparents, your aunties, your cousins, aunties, like, I mean, I don't, that didn't make sense. Everybody's telling you that makes no sense. You are trying to, you know, you're trying to do the impossible, has always been, I want inclusive societies. I see that for our future as Africa. I see that for our future as, I don't like saying the third world, but, countries that were formerly unseen, such as, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America. That's always been my intent. I don't like inequalities. They rub my spirit the wrong way. In 2016, while I was still in Cape Town, I established a printing press called Shangan Press, dedicated to that, because again, I was trying to figure out how I was going to materialize this aim and intent. And the idea of Shangan Press was, okay, there are stories in Africa, there are stories in Asia that are just not popularized, and how are we going to popularize them? That's how it started. That's how the journey started. Around that time, I was writing my master's dissertation and very interested in humanitarian law and international criminal law. And a loophole that I found was, well, international criminal law talks about child soldiers, but it doesn't talk about girl child soldiers. So that rubbed me the wrong way. So all of this is happening as I'm sort of narrowing things down. In 2017, I joined the Judicial Service Commission in my home country of Zimbabwe. And from 2018 to present, weirdly enough, how the stars align, I've been working primarily on these issues that I have been pondering and thinking about and trying to distill and articulate for most of my life, which is on women, peace and security, inclusion and decision making. How do we make a more equitable society? And this has been through research, independent research, and professionally. Professionally, I'm with UNDP Asia Pacific, currently heading the WPS department here. Research-wise, I'm with the Geneva Center for Security Policy as a fellow there and working on primarily the same issues. So a lot of the things that you've touched on, I'm happy to learn from you guys, because a lot of the things that I try and think about every single day, and even when I go to sleep, I dream about it, is issues about climate security. Obviously, from my lens, it's how it affects women and girls, but you can teach me more about, data collection, economics, I'm very bad. Social development, there's always more to learn. So this is a session that's really supposed to be, you know, it's great for the expert. It's great for the students, but it's even better for the expert because, you know, I get to learn from you guys as well. So this is the journey in pictures. And my smile is a bit too wide, so I'm going to go next on this one. So what are the objectives of this class? We want to, first of all, identify and frame some sort of research question, looking at the root causes of issues that you guys are dealing with. How do we identify and navigate online and social innovative tools? Since the beginning of, you know, COVID, I think COVID brought this into stark focus. We've been using more tools. Now we were on Skype, now we're on Zoom, we have MS Teams, we have Mentimeter boards, we have mural boards, we have, I mean, you name it, it's all there. But how do we, you know, make sense of the noise, because we're getting a lot of input from different places, technologies that could make our lives easier, but we also need as humans to use the best technology there is, which is our minds, right? And kind of figure out how do we collate and curate everything that is around us so that it serves our ultimate goal, right? And our ultimate aim and intent. And many of you have named it, whether it's, you know, trying to figure out climate solutions for Africa, or, you know, whether it is, I don't know, urban sustainability. We need to kind of figure out a methodology to socially be innovative as well as technologically forward. So that's one of the things that we're going to discuss. And then I'm going to challenge you all to think beyond your research towards your transformational purpose. Right? So again, as I said, for a very long time, I had an inkling about what I wanted to do, and I was trying to do it in many forms. And that was my transformational purpose. I just didn't know how to articulate it. And every day I kick myself in the shin because I say, I should have figured that out sooner, because that would have made all the other decisions better. Now, it's the same for you in this research. And I think that's why you are at such a pivotal time in your lives. And I'm so excited to discuss this with you all. Because really, if I look back, everything started to fall into place around the time that I was working on my master's thesis. And I was thinking about, what's my transformational purpose? What would I like this to be? How can I leverage this in the future for what I think I can contribute to the world? And then finally, we want to forecast and contextualize problems. Now, what I will say about this class, which is slightly different from you know, the traditional way of doing things, is that it has to be very interactive and collaborative. It's a thinking exercise. So we must all, I mean, for those, if you've got a stable connection, please feel free to switch on your cameras for longer if you can, so that, you know, we can see, well, at least I can see you. And I'm not speaking to an empty room and speaking at my computer. That would be nice if you can. If not, please feel free to raise your hand or to unmute and contribute anytime you have a question, anytime you feel like there's something that you don't understand, because again, this is a thinking exercise for all of us, for us to all go on this journey together. All right, so at this stage, any questions about the next few minutes, the next hour? Great. Silence is acquiescence in the law. I hope you know. So I'm just putting it out there that you have all agreed. Yes? Okay. Yes. I'll assume everything is fine and everyone is all right. Okay.
Yes.
Brilliant. Now we start with the great exercise on critical thinking. I've put the definition here: critical thinking, the ability to think clearly and rationally about what to do or what to believe. It includes the ability to engage in reflective and independent thinking. This means just basically the ability to rationalize. And this is something that you have to practice every single day. And now I'll ask everybody, if you have a phone, I don't know if you can see it with the green screen. If you have a phone or even on your laptops, if you could go to www.minty.com, and I will do that with you. And then type in the code at the bottom there, which is 12198189. Is everybody there? Is it working for everybody?
Yeah, it worked for me.
It worked
Yes,
for
I'm
you?
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in too.
Brilliant. You should be able to see the first question there. Is anyone having problems with it? So go to Mentimeter, you type in the code 12198189. And if it's worked for you, you could just unmute and just say yep, or scream something, orange, apple, water.
Yep. Correct.
All right.
Correct.
So the first question is there. The most important stakeholders in Africa are, and the idea here is that, let me stop sharing for a second so that I can actually see the screen properly as well. Where is it? And I think it should allow you all to provide answers. So you can type in the answers that you see fit. So I am just joining here as well on my phone to see what you guys are seeing. Oh, I see the answers are coming in. I will share them just now. And I can see when people are not responding. So
Could you share the code again? Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Could you share the code? The code.
The code, again, it's 12198189.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm seeing a couple of answers rolling in, and I will now quickly share my screen so that you guys can see what I see. Don't you love these new technologies? So because there's so many young people here, and I'd like to count myself as one of them, I'm trying. There are different definitions of young people all over the world. Sometimes it's, I think it's under 35, sometimes it is under 40, sometimes it's 55. In Vietnam, it's under 55, if you can believe. So I'd like to think, well, all under 55 here, I believe. So I'll take the Vietnamese definition. And I see that the biggest answer is really youth, businesses. I see the UN, businesses, women, and then the African Union. All right, fair enough, fair point. Now I'm going to move on to the next question, just to challenge our thinking on this. Now, before I actually do that, can someone give me a reflection as to why they chose a certain stakeholder that they chose? So anyone go for gold here? You can raise your hand. I see no hands raised.
Okay. I can't see where you have to raise your hand. But for me, I chose the youth because Africa's population is mostly dominated by the youth. So I feel like they're like a good asset to Africa's development.
That's a good answer. So basically, it's because of you, basically a population reason, right? We've got a high population of youth. Fair enough. Anybody else want to share quickly?
Yeah, I'll just add on to what Pluto said. I think, yeah, I also chose youth and women, but just to explain why youth. Um, right now, Africa is being led by baby boomers, and these are the people who, I'm just going to be blunt. These are the people who most of the time don't understand the policies. You know, we draft policies for them, we write speeches for them, we almost do everything for them, but yet they still make decisions for us. And some of these decisions that they make them so irrationally, which is why, because what they value most right now is just respect. And you can never be a leader if the only thing you value is respect and not accountability. So, as long as Africa is led by young people who are smart right now and understand policies and the importance of leadership, then we will get where we want to be. Otherwise, Africa will continue to face the problems that it's facing right now.
I like
Um,
that answer.
okay,
So you
I'll
could
stop.
continue.
Oh, okay. And then for women, I also chose women because right now we see a lot of governments being led by men, businesses being dominated by men, and oftentimes when you put a woman in space, they bring a spark, and even when it comes to decision making. And if you look at the way parliaments are being run in Africa, and the way decisions are made in public, they're just made out of feelings, not by um, critical thinking of how whatever impact or society would feel. So I just feel like if there was more representation of women in leadership, then of course we'll be able to like create societies or organizations that will better benefit everyone as a collective.
Thanks so much, Busang. And you know what, you've said obviously the women part touched my soul as well, but what I hear you saying as well, I mean, with both your answers, is that there are power inequalities and we need to rebalance that power, right? So the people who are not in decision-making roles, such as youth and women, should, you know, also be included in those positions so that better decisions are made. And then over to Toto.
Thank you, Belinda. I don't know. I just felt like the the answers were sort of restrictive in the sense that like all of those mentioned are actually stakeholders. Sort of, therefore I was torn between choosing like which one I felt was more I don't know, but they're all just important in developing Africa. But I chose African Union because it's sort of like the overarching oversight body, you know, over Africa. And then also I was drawn more to businesses because businesses do have a role to play in sort of like developing community in developing Africa as well. So really, I felt like there could have been an all option, and I could have just selected that one because we're all stakeholders.
I love that. I think you definitely bring up a very, very good point, which is something that, you know, I put to everybody to consider. Is the way that you ask the question. It's so like vital. I mean, I cannot stress this enough. So obviously the way that I've posed that question has restrictions and limitations, as Klotso has pointed out quite rightly. So even when you are starting to formulate some of your research questions, this should be something that's going in your mind. You don't want to paint yourself in a box to the point that you can't explore what you're really trying to look into. So having that transformational purpose right at the top, guiding you, you ask the question appropriately around that research question. And I think that's actually a very interesting point to bring up. Now, I've noted all of this down. It's going to get a little bit, as my little brother likes to say, techie, which means technical. This is what, I don't know, 20-year-olds are saying these days, it seems. So over to the next question. And I think if you look over to your phones or your laptops, there should be a question up. I'm not sure if you can see it, and it is: Africa is rich in potential, which you have all noted, but mismanagement of human and natural resources are the cause of disenfranchisement, or at least perceived disenfranchisement of the continent. Now, do you strongly agree? Kind of agree? And again, I understand that there are restrictions to this question, but I put it to you to see, what do you think? How are you, navigating these spaces? The slide should have changed, but if it hasn't changed, you can click right at the top to say that, presenter is no longer on the slide. She's on this one, and you should be able to see. So far, one person has responded. I love this. Would you like the number again?
Yes.
So I'm going to type in the number into the chat box for anyone. It is 1219-8189. I'm just copy pasting it into the chat box for you all so that you can take a gander. Everyone in the meeting. So Mentimeter 1219-8189. Okay, 2 people have strongly agreed. 3 people strongly. Okay. Does anybody strongly disagree? I wish I could vote on this thing and I'll balance it out and say strongly disagree. just to see. We've got 5 votes. There's 1 holdout. All right. So whoever hasn't voted yet, let me know if you're having problems accessing it. But for those who strongly agree, we've heard, part of the reasoning from Busang from the previous question, but maybe to hear from somebody else who perhaps hasn't spoken and voted strongly agree. All of you voted strongly agree. Wow. Okay. I'm interested to find out why. Why is this your feeling? Why is this just, 1 or 2 people? Whoever voted that, if you could just unmute yourself, it's okay. I can't see your hands anymore. Joseph,
okay.
Over to you.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, it is like, we have everything. We have arable lands, we have significant human resources, we have, all that you can think about. But for me, in terms of the youth, in terms of human capital, it's actually a waste. You find potentials just being wasted. In our part of the world, in Ghana, you find people get to age, say 35, 40 before they start, we're talking about the transformative purpose. People actually get to these ages before they start thinking about what's my transformative purpose, or even coming to the realization of why we are alive and stuff like that. Whereas in the West, or in other places, as early as 16, 18, people are being pushed. So in terms of our the strength of our educational system, there are significant challenges in that area. And so, we are not able to really push, bring out that critical human resource that's able to make us very tap into the potential that we have in our youth. and even, yeah. So I think in that wise, I've spoken more in relation to the human resource bit.
All right. I think that's a brilliant answer. I mean, what I hear is that, you know, you're saying there's an issue with the systems, right? So the
Yeah.
management of the human resources, the management of education systems, and sometimes it's not just human resources. So not just education systems, or that could be one aspect of it. But as you mentioned, people start thinking about their transformative purpose when they reach the ages of maybe their mid 30s, some people even 40, some
Yeah.
people 60, 70. They
Indeed.
only start thinking about it then. And part of the reason is probably because they've been preoccupied just trying to make a living, right? So there are other things that
That's
come
it.
to
Yeah.
play. So it's the system itself, mismanagement of the development system, of how we, of sustainable development. I like that
Mm.
answer as well. Yona?
Yes, so I also chose strongly agree for one reason. I believe the problem is the governance in most, if not all, of the African countries. We have leaders that are so greedy. They have turned countries into their homes. They don't care about the people they lead. In fact, the people they rule, not lead. They just do what they want. And we have, for example, I will give an example of my country. I'm Ugandan, and in Uganda, we have very poor people and extremely rich people that you find one person owning what should be owned by a whole village. So we have the resources, but it's just you don't want. Let me just give. I'm in the tech field, so I'm going to talk about technology. The social media platforms that we use every day, for example, Facebook, Instagram, and the others. The people that build them do not build them because they are so smart and we are not. We are smart. But these are people who, at the age of 8, 9, had a computer at home. They started learning programming. As they grew up at age 15, they are planning what should I build. For me, at age 18, I joined the university, and that's when I get to use a computer for the first time. And then you say, because I cannot build what he built, I'm stupid or I'm not gifted or whatever. So for me, it's really the governments that have messed up everything. The resources are owned by them. There's no quality at all. And that, unless that changes, Africa is going to remain dependent on the Western world. Even the people that study want to go and work in those big tech companies. They want to move out of their countries because they hate their countries. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think
it
that
for
was
me.
actually a great. I think you've actually touched on quite a number of points, right? So it's the governance structures. So again, alluding to, you know, the previous answer on the systems that we work with. So right now you're referring to more the governance systems, socioeconomic inequalities, and the Gini coefficient in terms of, there are people who the rich own almost everything, and the poor are very, very poor. So we've got a huge Gini coefficient there. But you pointed to something that's very interesting, which is external perspectives on Africa's capabilities. So as you said, that example of the tech. So Mark Zuckerberg may have gone, and he's a bad example right now because he's a bit of a touchy subject, but let's go with it. Mark Zuckerberg probably got his first PC at 9. He was programming, but then most of us don't get that opportunity, right? So we've got that. By the time that we are competing for international posts or at an international stage, the expectations are different, which is a bit unfair. But then that's because socioeconomically governance structures are not there. Now, let me just, but you also talked about our own perceptions of our capabilities. I think that was interesting, where we may feel, some people may feel that, you know, it's better to move to Canada, to Switzerland, to Finland, because, you know, there's nothing, why stay in Uganda or Zimbabwe, or, you know, name a country. I think that's also an interesting way to look at things. Now, basically what we've done here in the first two questions is that we have identified a certain group that we would like to work with. Let's say the question, the transformative purpose is, we want to identify some sort of issue in Africa systems, and we want to ameliorate it. The first question, we said, okay, which are the biggest stakeholders that I should be looking at if I want to change things, right? So we've started looking there, kind of done a bit of a mapping, and this will become clearer as we go on through this critical thinking exercise. So we've mapped out a couple, and I think youth came out quite strongly, women, AU, UN, businesses. So we now have a pool of roughly who do we need to talk to so we can make this transformative purpose, you know, come to fruition. Now we've also said, okay, but what exactly are the systems that I should be looking at? Where are the holes? What are the key touch points that I should be looking at here? So you've mentioned, you know, first of all of you agree, yes, there's a huge problem that needs to be solved, and it's mismanagement. Now, again, that's because of the way that I framed the question. It depends how you posit it to yourself. So the question itself has its own restrictions, but all of you strongly agreed, and from the responses back, it's mismanagement of education systems, governance systems, and the prevalence of socioeconomic inequalities. Another thing that I would like to add here is perceptions of ourselves, which I think has come through, whether it's perceptions of ourselves or external perceptions of us by others, which is interesting. Now, quickly, back to our Mentimeters. We're almost done, I promise you. You can quickly click go to next slide, and you should get a question there that reads, I think the root cause of these issues is. So when I'm talking about the root cause, we're really boiling down to what actually. So right now we're still dabbling in the realm of systems. We're still thinking about governance, but is it really? And then only 2 people responded. So maybe others have other ideas that they like to just bounce off the rest of the group. I see 4 people have responded. I'll give maybe another 30 seconds or so for the other 2 to respond. And we're waiting for one lone person. We're waiting for you. Sorry, this is where social pressure can be a good thing. And if you see my screen, most of you agree that it's government, and based on our discussions, I see, you know, that is a relevant assessment from what we said. But colonialization is seen as a root cause, and external parties. Maybe if we can have one person who said colonialization. Oh, it's shifting. I like that. One brave soul of the 2 who said colonialization, if they could just explain that answer, and then one brave soul who said external parties, if they would like to respond. You can just raise your hand. I can see you now. Or Joanna, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead, Joanna.
All right, I said external parties. By that, I mean outside Africa, external governments that are outside Africa. Because I feel like They know Africa is rich in resources, in potential, and everything my friends have mentioned. Of course, all the reasons my friends have given are true. And then because of the loopholes we have in government and everything else, they take advantage of that and would like us to remain at the level we are. For example, there are countries like Nigeria, South Africa, they really work hard. They would have been somewhere by now, but then they also work on like deflating their money. When they see that some country is rising, they work on deflating their money. So in that way, they create economic problems. They still keep they say when they inflate their money, the people, they create problems like unemployment through that inflation. So generally, they have indirect ways of making Africa remain poor. That's my point.
I like that answer, and I think you've brought up quite a few things. So it's again that idea of, you know, it's, we're not working in a vacuum, and Africa's not in a vacuum, first of all. But secondly, there is a history of exploitation that we need to be cognizant of that still exists today, whether it's through economic systems, and it's recognizing that. Colonialization, I think, will probably speak to that as well. But Joseph, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think she touched a bit on that. So for me, I chose colonialization because it's sort of the foundation. You know, there is a conditioning that's, I mean, even today, people still think that if something is foreign, I mean, the foreign or something Western, the concept of modernism is what there is in the West. We should have a different concept, or we should be able to develop a concept of what is modern. The Western blueprint should not be our concept of modernity. That's one. And so there's a need for us to decolonize our mind or our thinking, you know, the thinking that maybe what is foreign is better than what's local. This kind of, so these are all kind of fundamental things that are, have sort of led to all the things that we've spoken about. And I think there's a need. So that's why I chose colonialization. Of course, now the new colonial agenda and all that's also there. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting. And I think you touched on a question that I was going to ask now, actually, which is why people did not choose. I think the other option was corporations, and nobody chose that. And I think you touched on it ever so slightly there on, I wrote down the line, what is, people perceive what is foreign is better. So it's almost as if you've kind of all done this exercise where you've gone beyond. You said, well, corporations are bad, but they're working within a system that's based on colonialization. And that's what we mean about digging deep down to the root causes, what you are perceiving as the issues. And I think for everyone else, now I have a colleague in the Philippines who hates this question about root causes, because invariably it always comes up. And I remember he's older than me, like has negotiated peace processes. He's amazing. Like I'm literally there like in awe. But he said to me once, and he's Filipino, but he said to me once, don't bother, like why are you looking at the root causes? Let's deal with what we have here. There is a war now. We are going to do this now. And I thought to myself, no, in my head, I was just like, no, we need to think critically, because if we don't solve the root causes, we're never going to actually untangle this web. But I think what a lot of you have done, which is rightfully so, I mean, again, like I said, I have the utmost respect for him because he is so absolutely fantastic, is a recognition that, okay, colonization happened, but then there's, what are we doing now about the responses, which I think is quite a poignant observation for you all to make. But that's just my assessment of why you chose that. I wonder why you didn't choose something else. But then we will discuss that shortly. I think now through this mapping, we've gone through quite a few topics and explored a few themes. And let's touch base one more time with our main PowerPoint here so that we can actually unpack what this journey has meant and where we're going with this. Can everybody see my screen? I hope so.
Yes.
Yes, there was a quiet whisper. Yes. Okay, thank you. So what we've done essentially through this process is that we've started an exploration of the known knowns. I like calling them known knowns, where everybody realizes, for example, I mean, it's been quoted in, I don't know how many reports. It's actually quite tiresome to write and even more tiresome to read, because I've seen it from papers almost every continent, that youth are the potential, youth are the future. You know, that youth are important stakeholders in any discussion. So in Africa, we talk about the growing youth population, right? That they, by 2030, they're going to be a certain number of youth. Youth are going to make up a certain percentage of our population. I think it's going to be 65, if I'm not mistaken. In Asia, where there is an aging population, youth are the future because of the digital era of and the fact that they are early adopters. In Latin America, I'm quite sure you'll find the same. In Latin America, actually, and in Europe, you'll find that they say youth are the future because they're using digital technologies, and you have to advocate for some of the root causes of issues that we have now. So we see, Greta Thunberg talking about climate change, Malala, like you see a lot of these movements online. So those are the known knowns. We know that, youth is an important demographic. We know that there are systemic inequalities. Now, the examples that we've given, we've talked about and we've discussed are really from an African perspective, right? So we're examining our own continent as the key stakeholders. Now, I know earlier on, I think it was Klotso who mentioned that the way that the question was asked, because in mentioning the key stakeholders, one of the things that I did not mention is us, Africans, right? So not Africans in terms of, Africans in government, but let's say Africans in civic spaces rather than civil spaces, African academics. I did not mention that. And that was for a reason, because I just wanted to push. But then it also brings us to this concept of acknowledging and questioning our own cognitive biases, right? So we've discussed about all the other different stakeholders, but we also have to do a deep dive at who we have left out. What are we leaning towards? What are some of the assumptions that we're making, some of the internal biases that we're making? I'll give you a good example, which is a terrible, I don't know, I deal with it every day, so it's a bit of a thorn on my side, which is, more often than not, I am known as somebody who will always talk about women's rights. Put me in any room, I don't care what we're talking about. I don't care if we're talking about, you could be telling me about that wood comes from a tree, and I will find a way. I will always bring it back to this issue that's close to my heart. But in that, I also have to acknowledge my own cognitive biases, right? That, for example, let's say it was a chaotic war situation. People in a humanitarian setting, people are getting killed left, right, and center. What am I saying? If I say, save women only, well, that also comes with its own issues and its own, it's problematic in itself just to say women only. We're talking about gender equality. We're not talking and equity. We're not talking about, we need to make sure that we keep things balanced in addressing a bias. So these are some of the things that you need to consider. And I know that some people have heard lots of questions about these biases a lot, especially over the last 24 hours. The 24-hour news cycle with Harry and Meghan and people talking about implicit bias and whatever. But we also need to consider our own cognitive biases as we are framing our research questions. So youth is one of them. But another thing that you mean another thing that we should note is here we've said youth is a big demographic, women are a big demographic, there are power inequalities, there's issues with the governance structure, mismanagement of systems, socioeconomic inequalities. Are we, and we have to ask ourselves, are we looking at it from a space where there may be a hole? There may be something that we're not considering. There may be a bias that we might have. So for example, governance systems structures is a good one. Governance structures is an issue, fine. But how do we solve that issue? Are the governance structures the only issue? Or do they also have intervening, contributing factors from the economic side of things, the impacts of colonialization, the impacts of external actors weighing in on not just geopolitical issues in Africa, on the continent, but also weighing in on, you know, military and our security and our spending and, you know, inflation and, you know, the economic part of things. So here, I want you to explore that. Even when you know what you know, always think about, is there another way that I could be thinking about this issue? Is there another way I could be tackling this issue? And here we come into exploring the known unknowns. Now, ask my economics friends about the Pareto principle, because I understand you use it a lot. No? Everybody's quiet? All right, let me start by explaining the known unknowns. In framing your question, so now we know what we know. We know the youth population in Africa is great. We know that there are issues with mismanagement of funds, governance structures, education systems, socioeconomic inequalities. We know that we have a lot of natural resources. I think one of you alluded to that. But is there something in this picture that we have not identified? Is there a population, as they like to call it, a second, that we have not identified that should have been? Are there other things that should have been considered? And here I'd open it up and maybe invite someone who hasn't spoken to let me know what are the known unknowns. What is something that you feel should have been added? Those are the known unknowns. Those are things like, for example, in gender equality programming, a lot of the time we talk about empowering women, which is a good thing because we want to balance things out. But the known unknown was the question of how much is our empowerment of women leading to a change in behaviors and beliefs of men on subjects, let's say, of violence against women. Is us empowering women to be, I don't know, whatever it is in the country, it's different in every country. Let's say to have 50% of the seats in parliament, having an impact on the way that men at a civic level, at a population level, are treating their wives, their daughters, when it comes to violence against women or domestic violence. That's a known unknown. That's something that we have not yet quantified and we're trying to quantify. Is this making sense to anybody? Does anybody have questions? You're all suspiciously quiet.
Can you come again? I'm trying to digest. Yeah, my network is a bit bad. Yeah.
Okay. I'll say it again. A known unknown is something that you know you do not know. So an example, a conundrum from the gender equality world is we knew that there are lots of studies done by ILO. If you include more women as CEOs, then your company is going to have this net worth in 5 years. It's going to increase its net worth by this percent. In peace and security, we talk about if you include women at the peace table, chances are the peace agreement that's signed is going to last longer. We know that. We even quantified that, and we said, you know, there's a 35% chance that it's going to last 15 years and a 60% chance that it's actually going to last 20 years. That's a known unknown, right, in gender equality world. But what is a clear issue that that everybody recognizes that we have no idea about is how is gender equality programming impacting regular men who may have had very gender specific stigmas and discriminatory practices? How is gender equality programming in the middle of Goma DRC impacting a village leader? Are they changing their behaviors? Are they changing their thoughts around participation of women? Or are we just doing it at a high level in boardrooms in Kinshasa, but it's not? Now that's a known unknown. That's something that we know we don't know, and we're trying to find out. Are we having an impact on men as well? Does that make sense?
Yes, quite interesting.
So I chose a question that's easy for me to answer. Please go ahead, Joseph.
Oh, I said yes, it does. It does make sense.
Yes. So now in your research, this is something that you need to challenge yourself and think, what is it that I know I do not know? That's always your second step of your inquiry. So in the question of what's Africa's transformative purpose, we know what we know. We know the youth population is there. We know that there are issues of lack of participation of women and youth. We know that there are external factors at play, but we also know that the governance structures are at play. There are quite a number of intersecting factors. But there are other things that we do not know. What is the impact of, let's say, I'll give you an example in my country, and I know we're close to, time is rounding up, but I'll give you an example of when they discovered diamonds in my country. So we knew all these things. These things were all known knowns in Zimbabwe, and then we discovered alluvial diamonds. And the assumptions that were made by everybody, the World Bank included, was, oh, they found alluvial diamonds in Zimbabwe, the economy is going to go up. That's not what happened. That was a known unknown. And we should have just said, we don't know this, let's look deeper into it. Because what actually happened, as my grandfather will gracefully tell you, is that he sold a lot of his diamonds for very silly things, and we are now kicking. We're always like laughing at him, like, why did you do that? But that's also part of, you know, understanding, and you don't want to make that critical mistake in your research of not identifying your own biases, your own assumptions that you're making, identifying what it is that you know you do not know, because that is what makes for critical thinking, for critical inquiry, in any sort of walk of life, and especially in a research paper. Now, what I would encourage all of you to do, just given these exercises that we've done, given the thinking that we've done together, is the first thing to do as soon as you have that spark of inspiration about your transformational purpose, is to create what is known as a problem tree. And it's basically what we have spent today doing. And that's why I've been taking notes, because I will share this with you after the class. And it's basically this. It asks the question right at the top of, you know, who are the key beneficiaries that I should be looking at, right? So what are all these things that are, now this was in the context of COVID that this was created, but we're looking at issues of, you know, who are the key beneficiaries and what are the instant things, like just a quick brainstorm. That's beliefs. That's the overarching thing. So for us in this exercise, it is, you know, youth, women, we're looking at civil society, the place of the media, is it shrinking civic space, health sector reform is needed, governance structures. All of that is the key things that all the beneficiaries, like a mapping of the whole constellation of actors. And then you narrow it down to the branches, right? So like you can really start grouping some of these issues together. So you've got the overarching narrative, you know, long form, what is it, you know, out there that needs to be changed? And then you bring it down to the main issues, the main problems, governance structures, the systems, economic structures, the Gini coefficient, socioeconomic, digital divide is a huge one. So the difference between men and women having access to a phone, or certain people be at a certain economic level having access to any personal digital device. So you're looking at all of those different strands, and those are your branches coming down to your tree trunk, and you are narrowing it down. As you are doing this, you're thinking, what are the foreseeable hurdles? You know, if I change the governance system alone, will it change everything? It'll change a lot, but it won't change everything, right? You also have to deal with the socioeconomic actors. You also have to deal with this. What are the foreseeable hurdles with that? And as you're doing that, you're mapping it down in your branches in your tree trunk. And then you say, what do I not know about this topic? And that you kind of also just note down. I don't know this, so I need to check on this. And tied to that is, what are my assumptions and biases about this topic? What am I assuming is happening here, right? And then you get down to, what do I see as the root cause of the problem? Now, often I can actually say with a lot of confidence that a lot of the issues that you have all described as being your areas of research are actually going to interlink to more or less the same root cause, or different root causes, but linked together. So as you see here, for this problem tree, we're looking at the COVID-19 situation, but we came to a lot of the things that we talked about as the root causes here. Valuing of African solutions. We don't value our solutions enough. That quote, what is foreign is better, right? Why do we value that? Like when you dig deeper, is it colonialism? So it's like what was it? So again, remnants of colonialism, prevailing gender stereotypes. A lot of these will be the root causes. And then it is there that you then flesh out your question. So I really want to ask you all to look to these roots as to where you need to be when you're starting to flesh out your questions. So a lot of work needs to be done before that. And then there's a pesky thing of known unknowns. Now I will share this with you all, this presentation. The unknown unknowns are, you know, when you're starting to get to PhD level and everybody, you know, starts getting into different types of reasoning. Is this valid? Is this invalid? But it takes the same sort of course where you ask the 5 whys. So youth population is growing. Why? And then you keep saying why at each stage, because I don't know. I mean, or let's do an easy one. Women's participation is not that great in many African countries. Why? Because there is historically prevailing gender norms and stereotypes against women. Why? When did that start? You keep asking that. Once you get to your 5th why, that's where you get your research question. So I'd like to encourage you all to go through this process as you're thinking through a lot of the issues. I challenge you to think through what it is that you do not know, and to acknowledge that I don't know this, or I might know this, but this might be coming from a place of bias. This might be an assumption that I'm making about the issue. And yes, I think I'll leave it here for questions quickly. And I think we can, I mean, for the last 5 minutes, let me see your faces just one more time. For the last 10 minutes. I've been speaking to PowerPoints and the laptop for a long time. It'll be nice to see your faces.
You cannot start. Okay, I think you'd have to allow.
Yeah, you stopped the video. Can you allow it on your side?
My video? Can you not see me?
No, you stopped my video.
Yes, same here.
Oh.
So my video was on throughout, but you, as the host, you can, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Same here.
I'm just doing this for everybody.
Awesome.
Sorry, I'm just going to go down, down, down. Chingatai, I don't know if you can help me out.
Thank you.
I haven't started. But I think
Sure.
I think I have everyone. But maybe not. All right, let's see your faces. I know that was a crash course into critical thinking, and it's usually it can be a very long course, as you know. It could take anything from a year to 3 years. Basically a philosophy. But how do you feel? Do you have any questions that you want to go over? Anything that you didn't understand and that didn't come through clearly? Or that you liked? I mean, let's not focus on the negative. What did you like? Or the negative as well?
Okay, I can go first. That's fine.
Thank you.
I like this presentation. I feel like it would have been like a very long conversation. It's always nice having young Africans, talking about our issues. But also, it's funny how the questions you were asking were limiting, and they did require that kind of deep thinking. I don't want to use critical because we're in the session. Yeah, they require that kind of critical thinking, and I was somehow prompted. I wanted to challenge those who were saying AU as a stakeholder, because I had those kind of questions, and I was like, okay, fine, no, relax. So it's quite a very, very interesting conversation. And also in terms of as we approach the end of this session, I think I like this model of knowing, identifying the unknown, because oftentimes we just randomly ask ourselves questions and we don't know that there's a model out there which is actually exists, which you can actually learn and master it. And it's been a while since I've been in school, and I'm so excited to go back into academia, and even this model, I really like it. So thank you so much.
No, you're most welcome. And I think you pointed out to the thing that I think best illustrates the unknown and the impact of the known unknown. So when those questions that I asked were deliberately irritating, I was irritated by them when I was typing them. Because as I was doing the problem tree, I was just like, there are 50,000 things here that are missing. Like there's so many stakeholders. Mentimeter, why don't we have 15 more rows? But the reason for that in the end, where it works, is that you then, I hope, understand that if you rush something often, and I see it a lot sometimes with the papers, that when I write things and I quickly think of a question and I'm like, I'm going to answer that question. This is what it seems like to the person who's reading it, because they're reading it and they have time today. They will think there are 50 other reasons. There are so many assumptions and biases that you've made in your paper, right? They'll think exactly like you did when you saw the questions, like, what? There's this and there's that and there's that and there's that. Like, why didn't you ask all of that? And that's exactly what anybody who comes into your research, comes into I mean, I say research, but also professionally, because you're going to be answering this question, whatever question you guys decide is your transformative purpose for the rest of your lives, right? There are people who are going to come in and question you, why, and you need to be equipped to have those answers in hand. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why did you use that methodology? Can easily be, why did you have to move to Rwanda to do A, B, C, D? Why did you have to move to, why do you have to move to Rwanda to study on technologies, to do a study on digital technologies? If you don't have that equipped with you, it's so easy to flake, right? So I hope you guys can take that with you and also just do a bit of self-examination. Is there anybody that I haven't heard from in this chat? I don't want to miss out on anybody. Teddy's like, no.
I don't count. I'm here to listen and learn.
No, that's great, and I see most of your faces, so that's good. So basically, for your research, I think we're all tackling the same issues from different lenses. I'm glad to see so many economists in the Zoom room, because yeah, we need you. A lot of the issues that you guys pointed out were socioeconomically driven. So whether it is, local economies, so going from, at the provincial level, subnational, to, broader structures. So impact of other powers, other states. These are things that, I'm glad to see that there was a lot of, debate about, a lot of discussion about. And when it comes to, urban sustainability, Joseph, you've got a lot on your hands. Again, we talked about youth being the key touch point when it comes to this, but it could very well be, as something that we didn't discuss, it could very well be urban development. Right. So how we see urban sustainable development. We know that Africa has an increased growth in urban development. At least we foresee that in the next 20 years or so. The future is in your hands. How are we making sure that, none of these factors creep in, none of these bottlenecks creep in? That's really going to be our task. And, I'm glad to see that MBA, climate change, Ploto, good luck. It's a lot. It's something that I'm also considering, and I'm learning about natural resource management, and, women are the most impacted usually in certain climates when it comes to climate change and climate reduction, and climate migration is a thing. So I'm very, very interested to see your journeys. A lot, data science, social development. I don't know if I missed anyone, but you all have quite a lot on your hands, and I just want to encourage you to keep asking those 5 whys, to keep pushing. And if you need any assistance, just sort of breaking these things down, as I said, the PowerPoint will be available to you together with all the links. What I will do after the session is also, based on some of your responses, is to share a mural board with all your responses, so you can see how your responses directly correspond to the problem tree. So that will be probably towards the end of the week. Let's say, after the 2 sessions, at the end of the week, you will each get for your class what we've gone through, and you can see how it all ties together. And I hope that you'll be able to take it forward in your studies and for the rest of your careers, your fruitful careers, I might add. So maybe over to Teddy and Chingetai, in case there are any closing words or remarks that you'd like to add.
I can go first, and I'll be really short. I'll be like a few seconds. Just wanted to say thank you very much, Belinda, for this session. This is my first masterclass and I've learned so much. I wish I attended this when I was doing my master's because absolutely amazing. So thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who participated. You know, like it's really useful. I don't know, you know, we can talk via email on WhatsApp about like how studies are going and everything. And anyone that I have outstanding work for, I'm working on it. It's okay. But we can talk about how this session, like what you've learned and what else, you know, what feedback. And I'm sure like they're also open to feedback. But I do think that it was a really useful session. And me being in the position that you guys were in, I vouch for this. So thank you very much. And thank you guys for attending.
So quick one from me. I want to thank you guys all for attending and for being on time. It's really much appreciated. And I think Belinda also appreciates the really good engagement. I've been listening in whilst doing other things on the side, but I've been listening in. And I would like to ask you all to, I'm going to send you a feedback form. It's a very short one. If you could all just respond to that so that we can get a sense of how to improve, even for the group that's having a session on Thursday. So there is an opportunity for you to give praise, there's opportunity for you to give critical feedback. So everything is there in the Google form. And that's all from my side. Thank you so much, Belinda.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody. You all bring such a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge, you know, coming from different backgrounds, and genuinely looking forward. Oh, I see Klotso's hand is up.
Yeah, before you go, Belinda, I just wanted to ask, where do we reach out for you? Like your social media, where do you get access to your work, the things that you do?
My name, just type in my name on the Google. I'm on Twitter, I'm on, I'm on LinkedIn, I think I if anything, I usually post on LinkedIn, like stuff kind of just to remember professionally that, oh, I wrote this, or I did this, or I spoke here. So you can see most stuff there. But yeah, I mean, just on a one-on-one thing, I'm sure that, you know, there will be ways for us to keep in contact. But, you know, it's really been lovely. My name is the same everywhere, by the way. I'm not one of those people who have 50,000 secret accounts, simply because I couldn't remember the password for all of them. So I have one account that I just remember, and I'm like, I'm happy with that. But it's really an honor to meet you all. And I hope to speak to you all soon. Thank you, and have a good day.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Au revoir.
Hi, Chingatai. Okay.
I was just removing everybody.
Thank you. I didn't want to talk until